the nerve to pretend this is new information. Like, you don't even have to be like considered right to know all these facts. If you are just right adjacent, if you are like center right, very moderately right, or even center left, you probably knew all these facts that they're offering about the number of illegals who flew in, about how everything Biden did made it even easier for them, how he was taken advantage of at every turn, how they gamed the system.
Right.
I mean, they're talking about when Abbott sent the illegals up to New York City, like, oh my God, we have news for you. No, we know all of that. We lived it. We were mocking you because it was a brilliant move. And you guys were pretending like you were welcoming the illegals
Right.
at the time. Only now do we get the hard truth, which is you didn't like it. It blew up New York. It blew up social services. Like, the nerve, like the disrespect of the paper towards its readers to pretend this is new.
Well, they did the same thing with COVID. They've done the same thing with Biden's
Yes,
dementia.
good point.
They did the same thing with Russiagate. You see, news used to be about getting the story first. And now it's about being the last one in to tell everybody what's been obvious to them for years, such that you can put it away, start to decrease the outrage, give them a couple of months of venting about this. And then we'll move on to the next fucking crazy thing that you should never have to put up with, that will pretend isn't happening and maybe tell you the truth about in 5 years. That's how it works now.
It's really great when you actually go through it. I want to actually do that because the examples that they have in there. First of all, I'm going to start with this tweet from Dan Turrentine, who we love, formerly of Two Way with Mark Halpern and Sean Spicer, but those three guys broke up. I don't know the story, but it's sad they broke up. Anyway, here's Dan's tweet. Could not stomach reading this story on at Joe Biden's immigration policy this morning for fear I would be depressed, angry, or both. Just read it now and hope my blood will stop boiling by bedtime. Every Democrat needs to read and take a long look in the mirror. Yeah, he's right. And he is one of the honest Dems out there. But now here's what you've got on from the New York Times piece. I'm going to give you a couple of notable lines. In the weeks after Biden was elected president, advisors delivered a warning. His approach to immigration could prove disastrous. This is the part that's interesting. They talk about, the warnings that were given to him before he even started ruining our country. Biden's positions threatened to drastically increase border crossings, experts advising his transition team warned in a Zoom briefing in the final weeks of 2020. Chaos was the word the advisors had used in a memo during the campaign. In August of 2020, so this is right before the election, several aides wrote a memo cautioning Biden's inner circle that his promises, quote, could provoke a spike in border crossings, you think? Aides described Mr. Biden as having no strong positions on immigration beyond two key areas. I know, Walter. The two key areas that he did care about, he resisted anything that looked like Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. That's really too bad because that policy works so well. And he did not want to send children back across the border. So what's amazing about that is if he had just revoked Remain in Mexico and then tried to stop sending children back home to Mexico, it would have been bad, but it wouldn't have been as bad. So who was responsible for revoking every Trump executive order, for the slew of executive orders that Joe Biden signed when he got into office? Day one, opening up the border for 4 years of his presidency, only until June of 2024. Only until then did he start to reverse some of the stuff because the election was coming up.
First of all, this is all baloney. This is an attempt to make it sound like there were Biden advisors who were pressing hard for common sense and just didn't get their way. And why are they still remaining anonymous? If they were such an honorable group of people fighting for the right and for common sense, and if only their policies had been adopted, things would be okay, then why are they still remaining anonymous? What? Aren't they the heroes? Aren't they the people who should be raising their hand and saying, if it had been done my way, everything would be okay? No, because this is a psyop that's meant to make you think that there was debate about this and that the general Democratic advisor is sane on this issue. It just happened that, Joe Biden, who some of his advisors described as what? They should have described him as being asleep with a piece of a cookie in the corner of his mouth. That He's the perfect foil to make America believe that there was such a thing as another immigration policy that the Democrats were considering. No, this is one that they not only considered, they funded, they did everything in God's and government's power to make sure happened, to get the numbers as high as possible. They hid the transport of people by planes because people were appalled just by about the number of people who were coming on foot. And now they're going to tell us that it was some raging debate that they lost because, Joe Biden was vital and vivid enough to overrule them. Baloney.
Yeah.
It
was by design.
Yeah.
The whole thing was by design. Who was it? Honestly, who was it? I really do want to name. Joe Biden obviously, was out to lunch, but there was a cabal of far left wokesters around him trying to pull the strings on this and other woke policies that didn't consistently align with even Biden's own policies prior to getting to office. And that's why Trump is undoing things
right up
like
until the election. Right up until the election, they were telling us that, they were looking for a better bill and they could change this, and it was just a bit of an adjustment that was necessary and so on. They weren't telling us this. They weren't saying, wow, we really
and Walter, they addressed that. They addressed that bill in this article, the fake bill meant to really push through immigration reform once and for all. And you remember, audience, that Trump, then candidate Trump, was like, don't sign that piece of shit. He was like, that gives the Democrats some false win with some prophylactic measures that aren't really going to get it done. And will actually make things worse and not better. And the Times treats that as a serious attempt by Team Biden to govern and recover from this issue. But those terrible Republicans stopped it, because Trump wanted the electoral win. They actually treat that like it's a serious piece of legislation that came from genuinely caring Dems who wanted to address this unfortunate thing that just happened down at the southern border.
They're creating an alternative history, and now they're telling us the story of how that alternative history came to be. But it has nothing to do with anything that we saw, nothing that happened. It turns out that the answer to immigration policy was lock the door. Okay. And it stops it. They want that left out of the entire debate. They want this to make it seem like it's a very complex issue when, in fact, Trump revealed it to be probably the least complex problem of all we face. I mean, I'm shocked.
It's so true. You're right. Lock the door. Works so well. Works with intruders,
right,
psychos, and illegals. In the piece, amazingly, they use the photo, the very controversial photo of Border Patrol agents that they once, I'm showing it to the listening audience, where you see two migrants kind of down nearby a horse with a Border Patrol agent on top of it.
Right.
That was misrepresented by the Times and other outlets at the time it hit in September 2021 as Border Patrol agents. At the time they said, quote, on horseback chasing and in some cases using the reins of their horses to strike at running migrants. Others said outright that they were whipping migrants. Now that was all wrong. The photographer from Reuters who took the shot said nothing of the sort ever happened. That's a lie. And they still went with it. The White House came out and said that's what had happened. And now the New York Times chooses that image of all images that could represent our border problems. They choose that one. And here, clean up the description somewhat to images of Border Patrol agents on horseback waving their reins while pushing migrants back. We know very well what you're doing, New York Times. You're once again trying to smear the agents you defamed with this image that you already programmed your leftist, misinformed viewers to think is an example of abuse.
But you're absolutely right. Programming is the word. They've got to get that, on a 6-month cycle, they've got to get that picture into the American mind. On a 10-month cycle, they have to remind you of something called comprehensive immigration reform. On a 18-month cycle, they have to remind you that there were Biden advisors who had other ideas. None of this is real. It's just making it an alternate encyclopedia that will help explain maybe 2 years from now why everything's completely fallen apart. but not because we did it. We were trying the whole time. Didn't you see?
We reported on it. We reported on. We covered that.
Right.
That I can hear them saying, like, we covered that. Sure. Literally a year plus after the election. You utter cowards. Ever read the label on a typical bag of chips? It's often a science experiment of seed oils, MSG, artificial dyes, and mystery ingredients. Masa is part of the growing movement to bring back real food. Masa chips contain just 3 ingredients: organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. Not only do these chips avoid the bad stuff, they also taste delicious too. Snacking on Masa chips is nothing like eating regular chips. With Masa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic with no crash and no bloat. And if you love Masa, then you will love Vandy Crisps. Vandy, which is Masa's sister company, makes the most delicious 3-ingredient potato chips too. Ready to give Masa or Vandy a try? Use code MK for 25% off your first order at masachips.com or vandycrisps.com, or simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code to claim this delicious offer. Don't feel like ordering online? Masa and Vandy are now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. Stop by and pick a couple of bags up before they're all gone. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.